So hello everyone. I hope everyone is safe and healthy. So today our topic is estrogens. Estrogens. So what are the things we are going to cover in this one? What are our aims? So estrogen. Where estrogens are synthesized? From which substance estrogens are made of? What is the physiological role of estrogen? And estrogen receptors, how estrogen work, estrogen receptors. Then pharmacology of estrogen in terms of uses of estrogen. Then drugs acting on estrogen receptors. And in the end we will learn estrogen synthesis inhibitors. So these are the things we will cover in this session. So first we will start with some basic physiology. So as we all know, estrogen is the major female sex hormone which is synthesized from ovary. In ovary, it is synthesized in Graafian follicle, corpus luteum, and in case of pregnancy, estrogens are synthesized from placenta. So estrogens are synthesized in ovary. So what is the basic molecule required for the synthesis of estrogens? All steroidal hormones are synthesized from cholesterol. Glucocorticoids, mineralocorticoids, androgens, estrogens, all of them are derived from cholesterol. It is a multi-step process. Estradiol, estrone and estriol are estrogens in the body. And estradiol is the most potent and most important estrogen. Now these estrogens are derived from androgens, which is a multi-step process. Cholesterol is converted into all these androgens in a multi-step process. Androstenedione and testosterone. Now from androstenedione and testosterone, estrone and estradiol are formed through aromatase enzyme which causes aromatization. This step requires enzyme known as aromatase. Estrone and estradiol are then converted into estriol. All three are active. All three have got estrogenic activity. But estradiol is the most potent and most important. Now, if we have to inhibit the synthesis of estrogens, we have to inhibit this step. We have to inhibit the enzyme aromatase. Aromatase enzyme is inhibited by a drug known as letrozole. There are other drugs as well, but remember for time being, aromatase inhibitor letrozole. So synthesis of estrogens, most important one is estradiol. Enzyme here required is aromatase and it is inhibited by letrozole. Now what is the physiological role of estrogen in female body? It has got multitude of action, so many action, but we will see the overview of some action. So first and foremost, most important thing estrogen does is it brings about pubertal changes in the girls. With pubertal changes, there is growth of breast, vagina, uterus and fallopian tubes. So it is the first most important action of estrogen, pubertal changes, along with secondary female sex characters. Now remember, estrogens stimulate breast growth, and that means estrogens also stimulate growth of cancerous breast. So that's the trouble. Estrogen stimulates growth of cancerous breast cells. Now what is the another role, most important role in physiology? Estrogen brings about proliferation of endometrium in pre-ovulatory phase, or also known as proliferative phase, or first phase of menses, proliferative phase. So proliferation of endometrium in pre-ovulatory phase. Then there is ovulation, and then there is secretory phase, in which progesterone is predominant. So these are two things. Another important thing is metabolic role or metabolic effects. Now, very important thing about estrogen is estrogen inhibits or retards bone resorption. Bone formation is one thing, and opposite is bone resorption. Now, estrogen inhibits the activity of osteoclast. Estrogen inhibits the activity of osteoclast. Osteoclast causes bone resorption. Osteoclast causes bone resorption. So that is inhibited by estrogen. So that is the very important. It inhibits the bone resorption. Also, estrogen reduces LDL level and increases HDL level. LDL is bad cholesterol, HDL is good cholesterol. So it is a kind of a protective effect. In women before menopause, this has kind of a protective effect against atherosclerosis. So women below the age of menopause, atherosclerosis is uncommon. Also, estrogen increases the synthesis of coagulation factors 2, 7, 9 and 10, which can be a risk for deep vein thrombosis. If we give estrogen from outside, there are chances of having DVT, deep vein thrombosis, due to this increase in synthesis of coagulation factors. So these are all the metabolic effects. So after menopause, this bone resorption retardation effect is gone, because in menopause estrogen, there is lack of estrogen. Ovaries have stopped producing estrogen. So that is due to lack of estrogen. There will be bone resorption, and bone resorption will ultimately lead to osteoporosis, porotic bones, which can lead to easy fractures. So in post-menopausal women, osteoporosis is common. So these are the few important physiological effects of estrogen. There are many others, but these are the few important effects. Now progesterone. There will be a separate lecture on progesterone, but just an overview. Progesterone is synthesized by corpus luteum and placenta in case of pregnancy. Now progesterone affects the secretory phase of endometrium. Progesterone induces secretory phase of endometrium during menstrual cycle, and it is the main hormone which maintains pregnancy. P for pregnancy. Progesterone is the hormone of pregnancy. So there will be a separate lecture on progesterone, but just time being, just remember few things about progesterone. Now one thing you must remember is ovulation. We all know ovulation is release of ovum from ovaries. Release of ovums from ovaries. When these ovum are picked up by fallopian tube and they travel to uterus. Now this ovulation is controlled by hypothalamus and pituitary. This ovulation is controlled by hypothalamus, which releases GnRH, gonadotropin releasing hormone. This GnRH then stimulate the release of luteinizing hormone and follicle stimulating hormones from pituitary gland. So this ovulation is controlled by two things, hypothalamus and pituitary gland. GnRH, LH and FSH. So when this GnRH, LH, FSH release is disturbed, there will be no ovulation. If GnRH, LH, FSH release is disturbed, there will be no ovulation. Now whole this hypothalamus, pituitary and ovary, this is known as hypothalamic pituitary reproduction axis. Hypothalamus, pituitary in female ovaries. Hypothalamic pituitary reproduction axis. So it starts with hypothalamus, which releases GnRH. Now this GnRH will stimulate release of FSH and LH from anterior pituitary. These FSH, LH we all know stimulate ovaries to form estrogen and progesterone. FSH and LH stimulate ovaries to form estrogen and progesterone. So this is hypothalamus pituitary reproduction axis. So this is a positive effect. Now in terms of negative feedback, estrogen and progesterone, they have negative effect on FSH and LH. They inhibit the synthesis release of FSH, LH. Also on GnRH. So this is known as negative feedback. Estrogen and progesterone has negative feedback on pituitary and hypothalamus. So from this we can conclude, suppose we give additional estrogen and progesterone from outside, what will happen? If we give estrogen and progesterone combined, what will happen? There will be more and more negative feedback inhibition of this. So this FSH, LH and GnRH will be inhibited. So if we give estrogen and progesterone from outside combined, this negative feedback inhibition will be enhanced. So there will be decrease in release of GnRH, FSH, LH. So as we know, if this GnRH, FSH, LH are disturbed, there will be no ovulation. So when we give estrogen and progesterone combined, they produce infertility, temporary infertility. So this is the most important use of combined estrogen and progesterone as contraceptives. They inhibit ovulation, so ultimately they are used as contraceptives. So that is the most important use of estrogen, also combined with progesterone. They inhibit ovulation. They are used as contraceptives. Now how estrogen works? Now estrogen has got receptors. Estrogen receptors. They are of two types. Estrogen ER alpha and ER beta. Now all steroidal receptors, they act via affecting transcription of genes. They all affect transcription of genes. Transcription ultimately leads to synthesis of RNA, and synthesis will lead to protein synthesis. So all these steroidal hormones, mineralocorticoids, glucocorticoids, estrogen, progesterone, they all affect gene transcription. Now estrogen has got two receptor subtypes, ER alpha and ER beta. Now how these receptors work? So we will see in few steps. First, estrogen is our agonist. It will bind to estrogen receptor in nucleus. Estrogen receptor in nucleus. Upon binding with estrogen receptor in nucleus, there will be change in the receptor state or conformation. There will be some change in receptor state. Now this is the first step, change in receptor conformation. Now due to this receptor conformation, there will be doubling of receptor, estrogen receptor dimerization, doubling or dimerization. That is the second step, ER estrogen receptor dimerization. Now this dimer will bind to estrogen response elements, estrogen response element of target gene. This dimer will bind to estrogen response elements of target gene. Now this ERE is simple small sequence of DNA. ERE is a small sequence of DNA in the gene. ERE is nothing but small sequence of DNA in the gene. Now this is the second step. After this dimer binds to EREs, this ER and DNA. This ERE is a simple DNA sequence. This ER and DNA complex will recruit cascade of co-activators. These co-activators are various proteins. This ER DNA complex will recruit co-activators. These co-activators will ultimately promote gene transcription. These co-activators will ultimately promote gene transcription, RNA synthesis, and ultimately protein synthesis. So gene transcription is promoted. So again simple, first estrogen will bind to the estrogen receptor. There will be some change in the receptor state. Then there will be receptor dimerization. Then this dimer will bind to ERE. Then this dimer and ER and DNA complex will recruit cascade of co-activators, and these co-activators will promote gene transcription. So you can imagine what will happen if we give estrogen receptor antagonist. When we give estrogen receptor antagonist, so instead of these co-activators, there will be cascade of co-repressors, and gene transcription will be inhibited. So when we give estrogen antagonist, it will bind to estrogen receptor, but the change will be something different compared to agonist. Estrogen receptor will assume a different conformation. So instead of co-activators, there will be recruitment of co-repressor proteins, and this co-repressor will inhibit gene transcription. So agonist and antagonist, co-activators and co-repressors. Now we have seen two types of receptor, estrogen receptor alpha and beta. Now both receptors are situated at different sites. Estrogen receptor alpha predominates in uterus, vagina, breast, bone, hypothalamus, blood vessels. Estrogen receptor beta is predominant in ovaries. Now imagine we can make a drug which has agonist effect on bone and antagonistic effect on breast. Can you imagine a drug which has got antagonistic estrogen receptor antagonistic effect on breast and agonist effect of bone? Is it possible? Simple. We are making a drug which has got suppose agonistic activities in ovaries and antagonistic activity in breast. So this is kind of a mixed action. Both agonist and antagonistic action depend upon the site. So how this is possible? Through various research we have made drugs known as selective estrogen receptor modulators. Selective estrogen receptor modulators. They have got unique properties. They have got estrogenic action on some tissue and anti-estrogenic action in other tissue. They have got both mixed action. Estrogenic action on some tissues and anti-estrogenic action on other tissues. Now how is this is possible? First, the main reason is the ability of the estrogen receptor to interact with co-activators and co-receptor depends on the structure of the drug or ligand that is bound to the receptor. Now the drug, suppose drug X binds to estrogen receptor in breast and same drug X bind to estrogen receptor in bone. In breast it will interact in such a way that it will recruit co-repressors and in bone it will recruit co-activators because of its unique structure. So that drug is known as selective estrogen receptor modulator. It has got dual action or mixed action, estrogenic in some tissue and anti-estrogenic action in other tissue. So that is the one reason. Another reason is expression of ER alpha and ER beta is tissue specific. ER alpha has different sites, ER beta has got different site. So this is the reason why we can make such drugs known as selective estrogen receptor modulation. Selective estrogen receptor modulators, which has got both estrogenic activity and anti-estrogenic activity. An example of this SERM, selective estrogen receptor modulator, is tamoxifen. Another one is raloxifene. Now this tamoxifen has antagonistic effect on breast and agonist effect in uterus, bone and liver. So this is kind of a unique profile, antagonistic effect on breast and agonistic effect on uterus, bone and liver. So we will see SERMs later. So pharmacokinetics of estrogen. All natural estrogens, when we give orally, oral absorption is good, but these natural estrogens are rapidly metabolized. Estrone, estriol, they are rapidly metabolized in liver when we give them orally from outside. So we made some synthetic estrogen, factory made synthetic estrogens. One example is ethinyl estradiol, which is very slowly metabolized in liver. Orally, it is orally active and more potent. So ethinyl estradiol, when we give estrogen from outside preparation, we use is ethinyl estradiol. There are other synthetic estrogens are also conjugated estrogens, tibolone, but ethinyl estradiol is very commonly used. Ethinyl estradiol. And from general pharmacology, how can we bypass the metabolism in liver? First, bypass the metabolism in liver by giving transdermal patch. The transdermal patch of estradiol is available. Transdermal estradiol patches are available, which bypasses liver. Transdermal estradiol bypasses liver. So ethinyl estradiol and transdermal estradiol. Now the important part, uses of estrogens. When we should give estrogen or which conditions we will require estrogen. Basically when there is no estrogen. And no estrogen is the condition happens in menopause. In menopause, ovaries have stopped working, so there will be lack of estrogen and progesterone. So estrogen and progesterone are given in menopause, and that is known as hormone replacement therapy, HRT, hormone replacement therapy. Hormone replacement therapy is required due to cessation of ovarian function at menopause. Now due to lack of synthesis of estrogen and progesterone, we have to give estrogen and progesterone from outside. Estrogen and progesterone, or sometimes estrogen only. Estrogen and progesterone, or sometimes estrogen only. Now this HRT is helpful in some menopausal symptoms. At cessation of ovarian function, there will be some menopausal symptoms or menopausal problems, and this will be relieved due to HRT. Symptoms are various. First is vasomotor instability, that is hot flashes. Due to lack of estrogen, progesterone, there is hot flashes. Hot flashes in women means sudden feeling of warmth all over body, particularly in face and neck. There will be immense sweating, sudden feeling of warmth and sweating, that is hot flashes or vasomotor instability. There is some psychological disturbances during menopause, anxiety, depression, irritability, and due to lack of estrogen and progesterone, there is atrophic changes in urogenital tract. So these are all the symptoms due to lack of or cessation of ovarian function. Now these symptoms can be relieved by giving estrogen and progesterone, hormone replacement therapy, HRT. It is a very common and most important use of estrogen, hormone replacement therapy, estrogen and progesterone, or sometimes estrogen alone. Now hormone replacement therapy should be used cautiously. First is cyclical therapy. In 1 month, usually 21 days hormones are given and 6 or 7 days of rest, then again 21 days. Rather than giving whole month hormones given continuously for a whole month, instead of that cyclical therapy is preferred. 21 days, then 5-6 days of rest, then again 21 days, like that, cyclical therapy. So which reduces the hormonal load on body. So that is one important thing, cyclical therapy. Now, as we have seen, after menopause there is risk of osteoporosis due to lack of estrogen. Chances of developing osteoporosis in menopausal women is more. So earlier it was thought that this HRT will prevent or treat osteoporosis, but various mega trials have proven that it is not the best option to prevent osteoporosis. There are other drugs, biphosphonate drugs are used to prevent or treat osteoporosis. HRT is not the main line drug for osteoporosis. To prevent or treat osteoporosis, biphosphonate drugs are used. HRT is not the main drug. And also there are mega trials which have confirmed that combined HRT of estrogen and progesterone increases the risk of breast cancer, gallstone and migraine. There are some mega trials involving thousands of women, and these trials have concluded that this combined HRT increases the risk of breast cancer, gallstone, migraine. So earlier it was HRT was generalized, that all menopausal women were given HRT, but after some mega trials and results were difficult in terms of increasing risk of breast cancer, gallstone, migraine. So HRT should be assessed in individual women. It should not be generalized that all menopausal women should be given HRT. Rather than individual woman should be assessed according to her symptoms and then HRT should be given. It should not be given in generalized terms that every menopausal woman is given HRT. We have to assess the symptoms and condition and accordingly HRT is given. So that is the most important use of estrogen, HRT, hormone replacement therapy. In that estrogen plus progesterone or estrogen alone is given. Cyclical therapy is preferred, and remember HRT is not the first option to prevent osteoporosis. So that is the most important use of estrogen, hormone replacement therapy. Now we have seen this hypothalamic pituitary reproduction axis. Now if we give additional estrogen progesterone from outside, there will be enhancement of this negative feedback, and GnRH, FSH, LHL, LH release will be disturbed, and this will lead to inhibition of ovulation. So estrogen and progesterone combined can be used as contraceptives. So that is another major use of estrogen as a contraceptive. Estrogen and progesterone combined as a contraceptive. There will be a separate lecture on contraceptives. In that various contraceptives you will be informed contraceptives and adverse effect of estrogen. The adverse effects of estrogen, major contraceptives, all will be covered in a separate lecture. Contraceptives. So two most important uses of estrogen are HRT and contraceptive. HRT and contraceptive. Now another use of estrogen where there is lack of estrogen. Suppose there is ovary is completely dysfunctional. That will lead to delayed puberty in girls. Like ovarian agenesis in Turner syndrome or hypopituitarism. If pituitary is not working sufficiently, that will not produce FSH, LH, and there will be inhibited production of estrogen progesterone in ovaries. So in ovarian agenesis like in Turner syndrome or hypopituitary, we have to give estrogen from outside to treat delayed puberty. So delayed puberty is seen in Turner syndrome or hypopituitarism. In that case, we have to give estrogen from outside. So we have seen three uses of estrogens. First, HRT, hormone replacement therapy. Then oral contraceptives. We will study contraceptives in details in a separate lecture and along with adverse effects of estrogen. And third use is delayed puberty in girls in cases of ovarian agenesis or hypopituitarism. So these are the uses of estrogen. So let us rewind what we have covered. Estrogen synthesis in ovaries, Graafian follicle, corpus luteum, placenta. Synthesis requires an important step which is performed through an enzyme known as aromatase. Now, what was the role of physiological role during puberty, menstrual cycle, various metabolic effects? We have seen estrogen receptors, alpha and beta. They are tissue specific. They affect transcription of target genes through ERE, estrogen receptor elements, then co-activators in case of agonist, co-repressor in case of antagonist, and mixed action were known as SERM, selective estrogen receptor modulators. Now pharmacokinetics part, the synthetic preparation we are using is ethinyl estradiol and transdermal estradiol, transdermal patch of estradiol. Now what are the uses of estrogens? HRT and contraceptive. Two major uses of estrogen: HRT, hormone replacement therapy, and contraceptives. Now we have covered the estrogen part. Now we will see the drugs acting on estrogen receptors. Estrogen receptor antagonist. Estrogen receptor antagonist or anti-estrogen. And the first very important drug in this case is clomiphene. Clomiphene, anti-estrogen. The drug is clomiphene. Now again we will see this HPR axis. Now if we inhibit or antagonize estrogen receptor, estrogen will stop working. So what will happen to this negative feedback? This negative feedback will be inhibited. So double negative. So GnRH, pituitary, all will be stimulated. And FSH, LH release will be more. This more FSH, LH will stimulate the ovaries. FSH and LH will stimulate the ovaries. And particularly FSH, follicle stimulating hormone. So ovaries will be stimulated and there will be ovulation. So if we inhibit the estrogen receptors, there will be ovulation, stimulation of ovaries and ovulation. So that's why clomiphene is known as ovulation inducing drug. Clomiphene is known as ovulation inducing drug. By blocking the estrogen receptor, there will be more and more release of FSH and LH. That FSH and LH will stimulate ovaries and it will lead to ovulation. ovulation inducing drug. Remember, clomiphene is a ovulation inducing drug. It is given orally and use of clomiphene is in infertility. Clomiphene is used in infertility due to anovulation. If there is no ovulation in woman, it will lead to infertility, and this infertility can be treated by clomiphene. And in this infertility, clomiphene is given monthly for 5 days, 50 milligram daily for 5 days, starting from the 5th day of menstrual cycle. 50 milligram daily for 5 days, starting from the 5th day of cycle. This can be repeated up to 5 to 6 months, not more than that. Why? Because of more and more stimulation of this FSH and LH on ovaries will lead to increase in size of the ovaries. That will lead to some side effect like polycystic. There will be cyst formation in ovaries, multiple cysts, polycystic ovaries. Also chances of twin pregnancies or multiple births with clomiphene, when clomiphene is given for infertility, and if there is, it increases the chances of twin pregnancy. Also hot flashes. Basically clomiphene is anti-estrogen, so it will produce symptoms of lack of estrogen, hot flashes. Also clomiphene can cause blurred vision. And major another problem is if we give continuously for 10-12 cycles, clomiphene will stimulate ovaries much more, then it can lead to ovarian cancer. That's why clomiphene has got limited duration of use, like up to 5 to 6 cycles. If more than 10-12 cycles of clomiphene is given, chances of ovarian cancer is there. So anti-estrogen clomiphene. Clomiphene is an ovulation inducing drug. It is given orally 5 days starting from the 5th day of cycle. Usually 5 to 6 cycle, not more than that, because of risk of ovarian cancer. So that was clomiphene. Another estrogen antagonist or anti-estrogen is fulvestrant. It has got important use in breast cancer. Antagonist effect on cancerous breast cells. It will inhibit the breast cancer growth. So fulvestrant is used in breast cancer. It is given intramuscular. But for breast cancer there are other very important drugs which are coming up. But remember, anti-estrogen fulvestrant. So we have two anti-estrogens. Clomiphene for infertility. It is an ovulation inducing drug, and fulvestrant, which is used in breast carcinoma or breast cancer. So anti-estrogen clomiphene and fulvestrant. Now we have seen SERM, selective estrogen receptor modulators. It has got, these drugs have got mixed action, estrogenic in some tissue and anti-estrogenic in other tissues. So SERMs, two very important drugs are there, tamoxifen and raloxifene. So first we will see tamoxifen, which is very important. Tamoxifen. Remember, tamoxifen is very important. So we have seen that tamoxifen has got antagonistic action on breast, particularly breast. This effect is important for breast carcinoma. Antagonistic effect on breast carcinoma. So it will inhibit the growth of CA breast. So this antagonistic action is the use of tamoxifen. Tamoxifen is used in breast carcinoma. Tamoxifen is used in breast carcinoma. And agonist action is seen in uterus, bone and liver. In uterus it will stimulate endometrium, proliferation of endometrium. In bone it will inhibit the resorption. It will inhibit the bone resorption like estrogen. So that is the agonistic action. But the main use of tamoxifen is treatment of early and advanced breast cancer. This antagonistic action on breast carcinoma cell is the main use of tamoxifen in early breast cancer as well as in advanced breast cancer. It is the first line drug. Tamoxifen is a first line drug for breast carcinoma. Also, it is used for primary prevention of breast cancer in women with high risk. In some women genetically predisposed, family history, these women are at high risk of developing breast cancer. In this case, primary prevention is done by giving tamoxifen. So tamoxifen has two very important indications: early and advanced breast carcinoma and also for primary prevention of breast cancer in women at high risk. So this is the use of tamoxifen, breast carcinoma. Tamoxifen is given orally. Now there are some important side effects of tamoxifen. Hot flashes, also menstrual irregularities. But the most important problem with tamoxifen is increased risk of deep vein thrombosis, like estrogen, which increases the synthesis of clotting factors 2, 7, 9, 10. Similarly, tamoxifen increases synthesis of clotting factors, and this synthesis of clotting factors increases the risk of deep vein thrombosis (DVT), which can lead to pulmonary embolism. This DVT, deep vein thrombosis, can lead to pulmonary embolism. So remember tamoxifen, it is very important drug. Once more, it has got antagonistic action in breast. So breast carcinoma growth is inhibited. That is the use of tamoxifen. Also agonist action on uterus, bone and liver. Use breast carcinoma, advanced or early. Also for primary prevention of breast cancer. And main trouble with tamoxifen is increased risk of deep vein thrombosis. So this is tamoxifen. Another SCRM is raloxifene. Now raloxifene is somewhat different from tamoxifen. First, it has got agonist action in bone. It will have anti-resorptive action, and that is the use of raloxifene. This anti-resorptive effect, bone resorption will be inhibited. So raloxifene can be used in osteoporosis. Raloxifene can be used in osteoporosis. It has got similarly antagonistic effect on breast, but it is also antagonist on uterus. tamoxifen was agonistic, has got agonistic effect on uterus. Raloxifene has got antagonistic effect on uterus. Similarly, like tamoxifen, raloxifene has antagonistic effect on breast. So raloxifene can be used in breast carcinoma, but main use of raloxifene is in osteoporosis. It is also given orally, but and major use of raloxifene is osteoporosis. But in that case also it is not the first line drug. Main drugs for osteoporosis in postmenopausal women are biphosphonates. In calcium and vitamin D chapter you will see biphosphonates, which are the main drugs for osteoporosis. Raloxifene is a second line drug for osteoporosis. And similar, it has got similar ADR profile. Main problem is risk of DVT. Similarly to tamoxifen, main risk of raloxifene is risk of DVT, deep vein thrombosis. Also it can cause hot flashes, leg cramps, but major problem is risk of DVT. So again, raloxifene has got agonist action, estrogen-like action in bone, which leads to anti-resorptive effect. So raloxifene is used in osteoporosis. It has got antagonistic action on breast and uterus. So it is the second line drug for osteoporosis, and like tamoxifen, it increases the risk of DVT. So we have got tamoxifen and raloxifene. Now we have seen this figure, this ring A aromatization, which requires aromatase enzyme. So if we inhibit this enzyme aromatase, this whole step will be prevented and there will be no synthesis of estrogens, estrone, estriol or estradiol. So aromatase inhibitor, one is letrozole. So aromatase enzyme inhibition will lead to inhibition of formation of estrogens. So estrogen synthesis inhibitors, they are aromatase inhibitors. Letrozole, another one is anastrozole and exemestane. These drugs are reversible inhibitors and exemestane is irreversible inhibitor. Letrozole, anastrozole and exemestane. Letrozole, anastrozole, exemestane. Letrozole and anastrozole are reversible inhibitor. Exemestane is irreversible inhibitor. Now, these all drugs have very important effect. They inhibit the growth of breast carcinoma cells. They inhibit the growth of CA breast. So proliferation of estrogen dependent breast carcinoma cell is suppressed due to lack of estrogen. This letrozole, anastrozole, exemestane inhibit the synthesis of estrogen. So this breast carcinoma cell which are dependent on estrogen for proliferation and growth is suppressed, and that is the major use of these drugs. CA breast, this letrozole, anastrozole, these are the major drugs for breast cancer. They are all given orally, and these are the first line drugs for early and advanced breast cancer. Aromatase inhibitors are first line drugs for early and advanced breast cancer. So letrozole, anastrozole, exemestane, proliferation of breast carcinoma cells is suppressed due to inhibition of synthesis of estrogens. So these are the first line drugs for breast carcinoma. So for breast carcinoma we have tamoxifen, also raloxifene can be used, and aromatase inhibitors and anti-estrogen drug, fulvestrant. But aromatase inhibitors and tamoxifen are first line drugs. So let's revise. Clomiphene and fulvestrant, they are estrogen antagonists. Clomiphene is an ovulation inducing drug. Clomiphene is used for infertility. Clomiphene is used for infertility. Fulvestrant is used in breast cancer. Then SERMs, tamoxifen and raloxifene. These are SERMs, selective estrogen receptor modulator. Then letrozole, anastrozole and exemestane. These are aromatase inhibitors, and all these three drugs are used in breast carcinoma. Tamoxifen is used in breast carcinoma, raloxifene is used in osteoporosis. So remember all these drugs, always remember classification from left to right and right to left. Whenever you read some classification, go through classification both ways, left to right and right to left. Like estrogen antagonists are clomiphene and fulvestrant. Clomiphene and fulvestrant are estrogen antagonists. Tamoxifen, raloxifene are selective estrogen receptor modulators, and SERMs are tamoxifen and raloxifene. Like that, from left to right, right to left. So estrogen antagonist, clomiphene, fulvestrant, SERMs, tamoxifen and raloxifene, letrozole, anastrozole and exemestane are aromatase inhibitors. These drugs are used in breast carcinoma. So this was all about estrogen and related drugs. So we have seen some physiology of estrogen, synthesis, role of estrogen, estrogen receptor, ER, alpha and beta, uses of receptor. Estrogens, two major uses. Estrogen has got two major uses, HRT, hormone replacement therapy, and contraception. Then estrogen antagonist, clomiphene and fulvestrant. SERMs are tamoxifen and raloxifene. Aromatase inhibitors, letrozole, anastrozole, exemestane. So this covers the estrogen part. Thank you.